Yeah. So, all right, awesome. Thank you. So welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you, and we're more excited to have Malcolm Jenkins here to kick off our Social Impact Challenge and our series. I'm Michelle Histand. I'm the Managing Director of Temple's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute. So at Temple University, we call it the IEI. And at the IEI, we work across the entire university and with all of the Temple community, with students, with alumni, with faculty and staff, to build a creative and entrepreneurial mindset, and to help all of those folks learn how to either innovate within a company or to build their own venture. And we do that through academic programs. We have a major and a minor for undergraduates in innovation and entrepreneurship. We have a graduate degree in entrepreneurship. We have a certificate in entrepreneurship and innovation. So we're really excited to have this particular talk today. Throughout the year, we do several entrepreneurial competitions. We just wrapped up submissions for our Innovative Idea competition, and that pitch event is going to be November 17th at 5 p.m. I'm sorry, 4 p.m. if you want to join. And the QR code there on the screen will give you all of the information that you need to hear from folks who submitted to and became finalists in that idea competition. So check that out. And as we finish the idea competition out, we're really excited to kick off this with this amazing event today. So this event with Malcolm kicks off our Changemaker Challenge. And this is an entire social impact series because we know that with everything happening in the world today, it's more important than ever to address social issues and to think about social impact. So at the IEI, we established this challenge to encourage the development of social impact ideas and ventures that help change the world and impact communities around the world. So today is the kickoff of that challenge. And what will happen is that series will continue with an alumni panel. We'll have several workshops, and it culminates in a pitch event. So throughout that series, we're going to offer mentoring. We'll have other resources. And ultimately, for the finalists and winners of that competition, there will be seed funding for their ideas. So the Changemaker Challenge is something we definitely encourage everyone to submit to. It's open to all members of the Temple community, students, alumni, faculty, staff from all of the 17 schools and colleges. So if you want to get involved, the next two workshops happening are Wednesday, November 9th, where we look at how to identify and define problems, and Wednesday, November 16th, which is about impactful solutions, developing solutions. You do not have to be in the challenge to attend workshops, so definitely plan to check those out. You can scan there to register for those workshops. And we're just really excited to have everyone be part of that. The deadline to submit is February 1st, so you have a lot of time to think about an idea to change the world. And we hope that today's talk is going to inspire you and get you thinking about it, because our speaker today is changing the world, and we're so excited to hear more about it. So I'm going to introduce this amazing human who is going to run the conversation today. Zach James is a 2008 graduate of the School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. So he's a Temple alum, which we love. Zach is the CEO of Rebel Hill Consulting. It's a business growth firm that helps entrepreneurs and small businesses thrive. He does strategic marketing, brand development, content creation. Zach kind of does a little bit of everything. Zach is a partner at Demystifying Diversity, which is a DEI educational platform that provides workshops, training, consulting. And he just told us that their third season of their podcast is coming out shortly. So check that out. That's a great listen on your way to work. And because he doesn't like to sleep, Zach is also the director of sales and marketing at Navitas Marketing, which is an agency that provides traditional and new age marketing services. And finally, he's the co-founder of the STHM, which is our School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management, the co-founder of the STHM Minority Alumni Coalition. And Zach's been on a bunch of other boards, including Big Brothers and Big Sisters Independence Region, Grandma's Hands, Food Inc., and the STHM Alumni Association. And we are just so thrilled to have him here and can't wait to hear this talk. So Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that great introduction, and it's an honor to facilitate this chat today. And just so you know, for future reference, my new nickname is Zach of all trades. You can call me that. I am building the website out right now, so that'll be coming to you in 2023. But everyone, I'm super excited for this. Malcolm, it's an honor to have you here with us today, kicking off the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Institute's Changemaker Challenge, and sharing your story and insights regarding so many important topics. Now, for all you folks who are watching who maybe don't know a lot about Malcolm, let me tell you a little bit. Malcolm is the founder and chairman of the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation, whose mission is to create positive change in the lives of youth, particularly those in underserved communities. Malcolm's also a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a 3-time Pro Bowler, and I'm sure he's just as proud of being nominated 3 times for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. He's the co-founder of the NFL Players Coalition, addressing social injustice and racial inequities in our country. He's also been opening eyes with his production house, Listen Up Media. He's CEO of Philly-based clothier Damari, along with many other ventures that we're going to discuss and get into today. Now, Malcolm, all the people watching from Temple University, our surrounding communities, and folks far and wide all have a desire to help create a better world, investing in good causes and or starting their own entrepreneurial enterprise and ventures. And one of many things that's so impressive about you is your depth of passion and activity and success in so many fields, from social impact, of course, professional football, investing, entrepreneurship. We're going to touch on all these topics today, but let's dive in where most people first came to know about Malcolm Jenkins, and that is on the football field. You are a standout athlete at Piscataway Township High School. You played 4 years, and I know I have to say it, at the Ohio State University. You were named Jim Thorpe Award winner your senior year as the best defensive back in the nation. You got picked 14th overall by the Saints, kicking off a 13-year career that saw you make an impact in every city you called home, including, of course, our beloved Philadelphia. So kicking this off, tell me, at what point in your career did you realize that you had a platform to become this change maker in your communities?
Well, honestly, I think the earliest I realized like I could have an impact, probably in college. Jim Tressel was my head coach at Ohio State. Thank you for putting the D on it. Now that you've done that in the intro, I don't have to say it for the rest of the conversation. So, but Jim Tressel had us very active, in the Columbus community, my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, especially when I was an undergrad. We did a lot of community service. And so I was already kind of in that space. But really, when you talk about what was the catalyst to really expanding and kind of scaling up my vision for the impact that I could have, it really came with conversations through my mom. My rookie year, I had done a lot of work with the Saints through their community outreach program. So it might be reading to a school or donating to a thing, doing appearance here or there. Which was all great. But one of the things my mom sat down and challenged me on was, what do you want the impact to be? Like, how do you do this in the way that's most impactful? And what we realized is that we needed to focus and figure out, okay, what is it that we want to do? There's so much need, there's so much that needs to be done, and we can't do it all. And so really it's just identifying what is the impact that I want to have, what are the spaces and communities that we want to impact specifically, and then identify what those communities need. Mm-hmm. And it was through that process with myself and my mom, we decided, okay, I want to impact all of the communities that I've called home, that I played football in, lived in. And we started in New Orleans with one program. And over a decade of doing work, we've expanded that into 4 different states, all of the places that I've called home, doing everything from scholarships to food drives, you name it. Done things with numerous kids, taking them internships. Really, it all varies depending on that region and specifically what the needs are of the communities that we serve. And that idea really came through my mom, who is the president of the foundation. And so while, I might be the visionary of kind of where this all goes, the real catalyst and the ability to expand how we have been has been through our partners, has been through the work of my mother on the ground, that really enables all of that vision to really come to fruition.
Gotcha. And major shout out to Gwen, Mama Jenkins, doing amazing things with the foundation. And that was kind of your precipice for starting everything. But what keeps the motivation going? Like, what prompts you to continue to build and grow mainly with this foundation? What's that driving force?
Well, like I said earlier, the need is always there. It's ever present. No matter where you go, there's people that are in need, which means that there's always room to help. And for me, it's about if you can, you should. Um, and really, one of my ethos is Jim Trusser used to make us say this before every game. He said, and I challenge people on this when they want to think about how much impact they can have or what their role is in trying to change a larger society. He made us before every game repeat this, poem. I guess it is. He say, "I am only one." He said, I am one. Sorry, I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And what I could do, I ought to do. And what I ought to do, or what I can do, I will do. I'm sorry, I ought to do. And what I ought to do, I shall, by the grace of God, I shall do. And it's just this idea of if I am identifying first that I am somebody, I have something to offer, I have tools, I have a network, I have knowledge, expertise, then no, I may not be able to overnight by myself change this whole system at large or change society at large. But there is a certain sphere of influence that I have, and I'll start there. And so for me, it was very simple. Start in New Orleans with a very simple sphere of influence that I had. What keeps me going is that you realize that as you continue to build, again, the need is always there. The only thing that changes is your ability to grow your impact. So you meet other people in the space who are trying to do things, who might touch a need that you don't cover. And then you combine that, and all of a sudden, y'all are servicing more people. You expand that to another place. And next thing you know, you build a network of people who are all doing their individual roles, but because y'all have done it together, suddenly y'all have had an impact that is exponentially greater than you could have ever done it. But it needed to start with you finding out what you can offer kind of the world and then stepping into that space.
For sure. And going back to football and, where you played here for Philly, you started your career in New Orleans and the foundation there, but it eventually evolved into being a Philly brand as well. I wanted to ask you a question about a moment you had as an Eagle. It's actually right over my shoulder right here, this protest moment. Can you tell us a little bit about that day or that moment and what that meant to you? And did you even have a full scope of what impact that was going to have?
Well, I think the scope, that started in 2016. That summer, just for more context, you had the shootings of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, multiple athletes being vocal about doing things. So there was just a moment, in our country where we were very alert. And then you had Colin Kaepernick take a knee, or initially sit and then eventually take a knee during the national anthem. That created a global debate, and when those type of things happen, most people focused on the blowback and the turmoil that was happening at the time, but I looked at it and saw it as a true opportunity, like to strike while the iron's hot. And so what Colin did really inspired myself and others to, one, join in the protest, but also think beyond just that 2 minutes before an NFL game and think about how, if we all are bold enough to stand on this platform and speak about these issues, then what does it look like if we actually collaborate and build something that allows us to have impact in these spaces outside of this field while we continue to draw the awareness? So it's this idea of, shooting a flare, and drawing attention, but also providing like the action items and kind of walking with that talk. So that moment for me was just me making that outward kind of statement and commitment. You're jumping into it saying that this is enough. I don't care where we are. We're going to address this. You're going to have to deal with this, at least when I'm around. And then the plan after that was really just making sure that you continue to follow up, you continue to show up, you continue to use your voice until those things were addressed.
Right. And I'm noticing a pattern of a growth mindset in pretty much everything you do. Taking things to the next level is part of your ethos for sure. But let's talk about how that did develop, and let's talk about the NFL Players Coalition. Tell me a little bit more about how that came about and why that mission was so important to you.
Yeah, it really came about as like a brainchild of guys trying to figure out what we could do. After the protest started, we organized a group chat of about 60 players from around the league. We had at least two guys from every team,
Mhm.
and multiple suggestions on what the next move should be and how we should move forward or proceed. But one thing that happened was Anquan Bolden, who had been to Capitol Hill multiple times to lobby on some other, issues, offered to coordinate a trip for guys to go to DC and talk to legislators directly if we really wanted to have, the impact that we're talking about. And about six of us took him up on that offer. We went that season, and then went again that next off season, and it really gave us perspective on like what needed to be done and how we needed to present and come to get change. We realized that we were able to get meetings that most activists and people who do this work every day weren't able to get.
Right.
And so because we have that agency, we can use that. We knew cameras followed everywhere we go. So these politicians who make decisions in hiding in secret, we can bring out into the open. So we start to see how our skill set is needed, in this space. And then we also realized that there's nothing that we can get done if we don't organize it. All right, they did it. They kept asking, what's your name? What are y'all called? And we're like, what do you mean? We're like players. We're citizens, concerned about what's going on, but recognizing that they would never really seriously address us unless we were organized. And then once we got organized, we realized that the potential of our power of having all of our platforms, all of our, social media being, pseudo celebrities in the country, but being very big celebrities in our cities, in our markets. And you look at like how our politics are set up, we focus a lot on the president and the presidential, candidacy and all those things, but the majority of the power is state and local. And so we recognize that, that plays into our hands to actually have way more impact in our like specific areas. And then we can tap onto our collective networks when we need backup. So if I need to do something in Philly and I need everybody to tweet about it, we can do that and make this important. And so once we began to figure that out, that this is how we needed to move in order to make things fall, it became very easy to get things done after that. And it became more like we saw the relevance of having a vehicle, something that players can plug into and get activated in their community, get information, get accurate information, get meetings set up to whoever they want, to, push legislation, write op-eds. There was a gambit of types of activities that we would provide people so that if you were anybody who wanted to use your platform, you wouldn't have to go search for answers to figure out how to do it. You can plug and play. And that was an important piece, again, to move forward. If we wanted to ever do something beyond just the sideline, we need a vehicle to take that forward.
100%.
And that's how the Player Coalition was started.
Now, now you've retired, what is your involvement currently with the Players Coalition, and what do you see as the future of this group? What's the growth for NFL Players Coalition?
Yeah, I think so since 2016, 17, I guess is when we started it. We've expanded we started with about 12 NFL players, and now we've expanded to about 12 different sports leagues. So a lot of other leagues have adopted us kind of as the parent company under their coalition. So soccer, baseball, WNBA, even some of the things that the NBA did with their negotiations with the NBA during the bubble came from the things that we had to do when negotiating with the NFL. And so the impact of our work has always been about the community, but we also saw that a huge part of the back end is keeping this going, right? And so it's recruiting players, it's recruiting younger guys to be involved in leadership and to make decisions to make sure that this goes, not Anquan Bolden retired in order to focus specifically on building a coalition. I was kind of the voice in the NFL while I was playing. And now that, we are retired, times have changed. There's a need for new voices. And so a lot of my attention has been turned to recruiting and spreading the word. And like I said, we've done that with getting to other sports leagues, helping them set up their different versions of the coalition. And it's really, that is the part that I don't think we ever saw when we started this, was that we would expand it to a dozen other sports leagues and involve athletes all over the place. And those are the things where it's like when you talk about impact, the most important thing is just starting. It's like, and then once you can connect it, it's really the sky's the limit.
For sure. And thank you for the work you've done with that. And that's impressive to be able to reach other leagues as well, especially in the short amount of time since you all created it. So kudos to you. And a quick message for anyone who is watching. If you have questions for Malcolm, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So please feel free to drop any questions for us, and we'll try to answer a few of them at the end of our chat. Now let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about your investing initiatives, specifically with Broad Street Ventures. You and your co-founder, Rolanda Johnson, launched this in the midst of what we can call a tough year in 2020. What were your goals with launching Broad Street Ventures?
Again, my whole ethos, and I'll probably talk about this literally this whole conversation, but this idea of a collective. I played on the teams, since I was 7 years old. So when it comes to investing, there are opportunities that I was getting, or access to deals that were really good. I met a great mentor out of Atlanta named Rashawn Williams. And he was just really giving us the ins and outs of venture capital and how to invest, what his strategies were, and how he, goes about making his money. And it was very simple once you had the knowledge. It wasn't like this was something that was extra complicated or something that I wasn't qualified for or my peers wasn't. And you realize that it's just a lack of access to knowledge and capital. And if I'm a round of a bunch of peers who have the capital, who look like me, and all that we need is the knowledge, then I can spread that and we can do this together, right? Because it's all of these deals. It's like this idea of I can invest in one company, or 5 companies, but I can't afford to invest in 20. And so the likelihood of these companies succeeding when you're only investing in 5 are likely that all of those are going to fail. But if I invest in 20, then I have a likelihood that one of those will hit and make up all of the losses. Well, if I don't have enough money to do that, then what I need to do is create a fund structure where we all put in, we spread our money across these different things, and we share in the proceeds. So no, I don't get 100% of the proceeds that come back on the investment, but I also don't take 100% of the risk.
Right.
So when these things fail, I don't feel it as much. Neither, and no one does. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to take this knowledge and bring it to my peers and create another vehicle in which we can do this like ourselves, put people who, there aren't many VCs. And when I say aren't many, it's probably less than 2% of VCs, and it might be lower than that, have Black female general partners that actually make the decisions as to where the investments go. So we wanted to make sure that not only were we creating opportunities to invest amongst my peer group and entertainers who look like me, but that the leadership at the top of it and decision makers would also, be minority investors, because that stuff is you just don't see it that much in that space. And because we have the power to do it ourselves, this is the way we wanted to structure it. And it's been phenomenal. Even though 2020 was a rough year for the country, some of the investments we made turned and went public like within a few months of some of the investments we made. So it's one of those things that is, you realize that once you prove that we can do this, that we have the skill set, we have the network, it's just about doing it, improving the proof of concept. And that's really what I see myself as doing, is where whoever believes in the vision right now will blaze a trail that hopefully the next generation who's watching, takes all of these tools and does far more than what we see myself or any of the athletes doing right now.
That's fantastic, man. Tell me a little bit about who you look to support. Like, what types of businesses does your venture want to get behind?
Yeah, so this fund right here is really, again, it's the proof of concept. And so we're looking specifically at the winners. If we have access to really good deals as athletes, everybody wants you to invest in their stuff. And the problem is you don't have a vetting system. But we have that. And so now that we have deal flow and we can vet deals, we're only saying yes to the deals that we believe are going to win. And unfortunately, the way that ecosystem is set up, it doesn't allow for you to be hyper intentional on like minority companies and things like that if you're trying to make the most money. And so our plan is like, okay, well, as we enter this space, we want to align with the winners, show people show our peers and people who look like us that this is possible, that we can do these things that are led by us. And then the next phase of that is really getting into like minority businesses because the access to capital is very low when it comes to businesses that are run by African Americans and women. And so when we have, it's like secure the bag, and then we can reinvest that money into the people that we want. And so yeah, it's a few phases to this game, and we're fresh into it. But again, it's been going really well, and we look to set up more funds kind of as the years go.
Awesome. And you say it's been going really well. What would you say would be the top investment y'all have made to date?
So my favorite one, well, we invested in Airbnb, and that was the one that went public. I think it went public in 2020. In December that year. We started, I think, in August, and it went public in December. So that was a great one. And there's been multiple exits since then. I'm just at this point, because I put Rolanda Johnson in a place to make all the decisions. Right. I just smile when I get a paycheck.
Awesome. Awesome. That's a good time to smile.
Exactly.
Now, I always say, investing in others is a key, but you've taken that to a whole nother level. Even when investing time and energy and resources into your own entrepreneurial ventures, they seem to be rooted in helping others succeed, giving them an opportunity, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So tell me a little bit about another venture that I know you have called Disrupt Foods. I don't have a lot of knowledge about Disrupt Foods. Give me some background on what that is.
Same thing is how can, when I get opportunities and I figure out like how to excel in a specific space in business, then the idea is, okay, how do I get that knowledge to my peers without them having to go through the same stuff that I went through? And collective economics is a way to do that. And so I've been E&R Foods, we own about a little bit more than a dozen quick service restaurants on the East Coast, between like the Boston area down to North Jersey and Newark. And our operations in quick service restaurants that's everything. It's how you operate, it's how you make your money, if you win or lose. And our operations have been really, really strong over the course of 5 years. And now we're getting recruited and courted by other quick service, restaurant franchises in the industry. And we'll have access to where they want us to buy 10, 20, 30 stores at a time. Realistically, I don't have the capital myself to do all of that.
Right.
But there's opportunity, right? There's money that doesn't need to be left on the table, because I do know enough people who can put that money together. And now that they don't have to worry about the operations of it, they can still get into and diversify their portfolios and get into franchising without having to create what I've already created. You can put your money into something that's proven, that's already making money, it's owned by us, looks like us. And those are the things that, like, the infrastructure is, I think, when we talk about impact, it's the investment into the infrastructure that is what's missing. Handouts are cool, donations are great, but if we never get to the root cause of problems, then we're just kicking the can kind of down the road. And so what I've tried to do in everything is, as soon as I like have amassed enough knowledge in space to build, then that's when we stop, turn around, and build with those around us, in order that when I'm done and I move, these opportunities continue to go.
Right.
And I think that's really that's been my ethos.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I'm already peeking ahead to some of the questions we're going to have for Q&A. I'm excited. I can't wait to get to that point. But we got a few more ventures that I want to make sure we touch on. One is in 2018, you launched Listen Up Media with a goal of growing awareness and fostering conversation around systemic issues in our society. Can you dive more into what this brand means for you and the impact you've had thus far? And then we'll touch on what's next up for Listen Up Media, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Listen Up Media started out of the frustration as an athlete of only having, platforms of like your ESPNs and your sports networks to talk about the issues or things you want to talk about. And then even there, your words are, at the mercy of the writer or reporter who wants to write a story that is not about you. Right? They have their own story they want to write. And so it's like, how do I own like anything else, if you want ownership, it's like, how do you have ownership in your voice, your story, without somebody else, telling it for you? And that's been important, not only for me as an athlete, but we look at just minority groups as a whole. The ability to tell your own stories and representation is huge. And, it's an old African proverb when they say the tale of the hunt will always be told from the perspective of the hunter until the lion knows how to write. And it's like, until you, we get these narratives out there, it's going to be hard for us to get to truth and understanding. And so I started with that. My first project, I was able to come on to a project called Black Boys. It's actually streaming on Peacock right now, where I was a contributor, and then I came on as an executive producer, where it really dives into the humanity of Black boys and how that humanity is under attack as early as school age. So we look at disparities in Black boys when it comes to their treatment in schools, their treatment in the criminal justice system, their overall, the rhetoric that's pushed to them about what they can do, can't do, historically, what's been valued about Black men and what has been devalued about Black men, and what it feels like to live in that body that's a commodity, but also everyone's afraid of. And so it's really just putting more humanity back into Black boys. And that was the first piece that we were on. And it's those type of story, the type of storytelling that I want to be a part of. And so, yeah, we've been developing a few things since then. That was back in 2018 that we launched Listen Up. Yeah, and since then have been doing things from documentaries to scripted comedy series, all kind of things. Awesome. Just another way to own my own voice, to highlight Black stories. Yeah, and put out the content that I want to see.
It's beautiful to be able to make what you want to consume. That is fantastic. And you said it's on Peacock, correct? Black
Yes.
Boys?
Yep.
Awesome. Folks, if you have Peacock, you should be going to bookmark that now. And if you don't, you got a reason to go get Peacock now. Yeah. The other ventures that you've been working on, or the other projects with Listen Up Media, are they out for consumption yet, or how do people?
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm currently working on, and I'm like, this is one I hope I can get to y'all soon. I'm working on a documentary now about the history of Black wealth in America. I did a fellowship at Harvard in 2020, where they allowed me to study kind of whatever I wanted, and I would have access to the library, the facility staff, their network. And I wanted to study how, or see, looking at the wealth gap that exists now, where on average, white families have 10 times the net worth of the average Black family. And in 2050, I think the number is the the average net worth of African-American families will be zero by 2050. And it's like, well, why does that exist? And how do events like the massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, how does that have anything to do with, or does it have anything to do with the wealth gap that we see today? And really just going through this journey of what wealth has looked like in the past, what it has looked like, what it looks like currently, but really reimagining with a fresh look on history and an itemized kind of audit of how we've gotten to where we are. It's a reflection on how, or not a reflection, but pondering what a future could look like, where if we could build Black Wall Street in 1921 or in the 1920s, in the middle of Jim Crow, how can we not do that or do something similar to it? What can we do now with the resources that we have in 2022 and beyond? And so, yeah, that's one of the things that I'm working on right now, and that's been really a passion project of mine. Obviously falls right in line with a lot of things that we're talking about today, and a lot of the work that I've been doing. So yeah, it's about being able to roll that information out in a way that's digestible, that disarms people a little bit, and where you can really get your point across, as opposed to standing on a podium preaching.
Fantastic. No, that's awesome. And presentation, the way you put out information usually is the key to how well it's consumed and how well people learn from it and grow from it and make an impact. So we cannot wait to see that when you're ready to put it out there. I'll be having alerts. I'll be looking.
For sure.
But actually talking about finance and financial wellness in our community, that actually bleeds into this next piece I want to talk about, which is real estate, one of the biggest keys to financial wealth. So please give us some insight. You have ENR Real Estate Group. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with ENR these days.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Another fund structure, a collective that we have built. This is probably our youngest endeavor. So we're right now in negotiations to acquire a few properties, most of them in the New Jersey and Philly area. But it's the same thing. When we have opportunities and deals come our way, we want to be able to, when there's space to share. And people who are looking for, investments into real estate or access into good real estate deals, that we share that if there's room, because there are certain deals that are, again, they're too big for us to do on our own, but are very opportunistic. And so that's really what we're doing there. I've seen how a funny story. I learned the reason I know how, for me, why I'm passionate about adding real estate into this portfolio, getting other guys access, is because in 2010, that's when I found out how credit worked. I bought a whole building on credit. And it was like, oh, this is a very simple concept. There's a building, for whatever reason, they had to sell 26 units in Columbus, Ohio. It's right there on campus. And there's 16 offers on the place. But I was the only person who could come with a cash offer because I had a high net worth. So I had a pretty big line of credit. I bought that building for less than the asking price, but I skipped all the 16 offers because I was the only one with a cash offer. So I got it was listed for 1.2. I got it for like 950. That it was already fully occupied. So it cash flowed immediately with a low interest rate. So I bought a whole building, $1 million building, and never spent $1 of my own money. And it's like, these are the lessons though. And for me, I felt bad. Like I felt like I got away with something. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you realize that no, this is how these things work. It's just the access to the knowledge of how to recognize prime and like great opportunities. That was a home run that's not gonna come every time.
Right.
but it's still just the knowledge that I got in that. And it wasn't really like mind-blowing knowledge. It's very simple and what seems like common knowledge, but it's not. And I think that's really the biggest part of what we're doing is not only are we trying to build collectives, not only are we trying to make money, but in doing that, we have to educate. And that's one of the biggest things for me is like, I don't want to have an impact that stops when I leave the room. So if I don't make you smarter or give you a tool, then I'm really not helping.
Right. Right. Again, we've seen an impact that you've made in every single thing we've discussed. I'm not going to guess what the impact of this next one is. I know it ties very much into your passion of fashion, but I'm sure there's a way that it makes an impact for other people as well, because I've seen tremendous growth over the years in Damari. I've yet to get my custom suit, so we'll talk about that offline. But fill us in a little bit about your passion for fashion and about Damari, what you see for the future of Damari, and of course, how that ties into your ethos.
Yeah, I'm a do-it-yourselfer, very, very much like hands-on to everything I do. And back in 2010, I want to say, I started it might have been 2012. I started a men's accessory line called Rock Avenue Bow Ties. That was my first taste of like entrepreneurship.
I got one of those.
You know
There's
what I
some
mean?
nice
Like,
bow ties.
and we were making, and I really like literally bought fabric, a sewing machine, and taught myself how to make some. And I realized very quickly that I am not a seamstress. And so then it's like, okay, well, I got to go into manufacturing. I got to do these things. So I got my first taste of entrepreneurship with that company. But it's really hard to, or at least was hard for me to scale that. And I also didn't want to be known for just men's accessories. So I had visions of something bigger, of doing a whole line, a menswear line. But that really expanded to what we have now, Damari. We've been doing for 5 years. That is a fully custom clothier. We do men's, women's clothes from casual to formal. And it's been, yeah, like I said, a big growth. Red carpet things to everyday work fits. It's, to me, fashion has always been another form of expression, another way to talk about how you feel or communicate with people without saying anything. And to me, sometimes those are often most effective. And so I've never been really big into fashion, quote unquote, but I love style. I love people finding their own voice within the clothes that they wear. And that's me. Dion used to say, you look good, you play good, they play good. It's like, it is your well-being. A lot of that comes down to like how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem. And so, yeah, that's always been something for me that is a little less like in your face, but it's still very much in the ethos of storytelling, very much in the ideas of Black ownership and what it looks like to be a Black brand. But when we talk about impact, one of the first things we did when we started like 5 years ago was linked with a company called Men's Fit in Philadelphia that provides formerly incarcerated gentlemen with job training and the resources to Raya. Rhonda's been killing it for years, doing a lot of important work. And so one of the ways we were able to support her was not only raise the brand and awareness of Men's Fit, but provide suits for her to donate. So it wasn't just, your not to knock anybody else's brand, but it wasn't, your off the rack stuff. We're giving really high quality stuff so that when men are out here, then they're feeling good about themselves, especially men coming, out of incarceration, trying to adjust back into the world and all of the challenges that they face. Feeling good about yourself and self-esteem is a huge part of that. And so, again, we're not doing the work, but we're able to support an organization in Men's Fit that is doing phenomenal work and needs that specific role. And we fill that specific role. They need suits, we give suits, and they are aligned in what we want to do and the impact we want to have. So those are just different ways to take something that seems kind of surface level like fashion and really make it penetrate and have some depth.
That's the tie-in I was talking about. It's right there. That's a beautiful thing. And yes, I'm very familiar with that organization. They do great work, and it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference in feeling good about yourself, looking good, and how you then move forward in the world. It's a major key. Now I know we talked on this in the front, but I'm still saving the best for last. And I am completely biased in saying that because I had the privilege of working side by side with your foundation and your amazing mom, Gwen, during your last year playing here in Philly. And I was able to see firsthand the impact that you made with the foundation, from the Next Level football camp to the Get Ready Fests, holiday dinner basket surprise, project rewards where you're giving out scholarships. There was one thing, though, that I learned about that I wasn't really familiar with, so I wanted to get some insight into that. I heard a bit about this unique savings account program that you started. So you can give us a little bit of insight into what that is?
Yeah, I think as I've been on this journey of trying to help communities, one of the things that, or the last stop that I've kind of boiled it down to, is economics. You talk about how to build people up to be able to have advocacy for themselves. A lot of that comes with financial stability. And so as we're looking at financial literacy, how to get people to think differently about money, how to get children to talk about it earlier and learn the tools of, finances earlier, we start looking at how to have that impact. And what we wanted to do, and in 2020 hit, and we realized a lot of children that we're trying to impact didn't have access to computers, didn't have access, or couldn't get into schools. And then there was a divide when it came to the digital access to these online resources. Since then, we've life has adjusted, and we realized that a virtual kind of platform can be used and can touch a lot broader areas of people. And so we want to bring some of the programs that we've had in person all of these years to an online curriculum, specifically focused around financial literacy and getting kids to think differently about finances. And in doing that, it's not a simple challenge. It seems simple, but it really isn't. We realize that when dealing with minors and children, you also need to educate the parents. And so what we've been doing is focusing on which schools we can have specific impacts in, and partnering with them. So far, Philadelphia and Newark, New Jersey are really our two focus areas where we'll go in and lay out a curriculum of financial literacy, where we'll have my friends, colleagues around the country weigh in, visit, and speak with them about different levels, lessons along the way. And obviously hear from me about my own journey with finances and my own philosophy. So it's something that the school districts are really excited about. It's something that I think is necessary, and is right in line kind of with the evolution of myself and the foundation.
Gotcha. Now, the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation has a major focus on impacting our youth. And as I'm sure you know, one of the biggest issues we have today, especially here in the city of Philadelphia, is gun violence amongst the youth. Can you share us your thoughts on, again, I don't want to say you can just fix the problem, but what are your thoughts on how to make this issue less? And, share a little bit about, I believe you did a ceasefire program you facilitated in New Orleans. Can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Yeah, and I think that so I think we're at a scary time, right? Because it's very hard to think straight when there's violence going around, and there's a lot of fear mongering that happens with that. But again, just to talk about my experiences, what I've learned, the first thing that I got into when it came to like social activism was I joined an organization in New Orleans. This was probably 2010-ish as well, called Ceasefire. And there was a lot of gun violence in that city at the time. And they wanted to, community groups and activists wanted to do something to stop. And what you realized is that you're trying to fight something that is not the root cause, it's a symptom of. All right. Gun violence, when you look at it on the map, is usually pretty centralized. All right. It's not spread out. That means that there are specific people that are perpetrating this. And when you can either look at the people and say it's them, but we've learned over the decades that we as a country went through mass incarceration, where we tried to arrest people and be tough on crime and lock people up for longer, that never stopped crime.
Right.
And gun violence didn't go away. So then if we're looking at, well, what are the key indicators of gun violence? You'll start to look at things like poverty and in education, what resources are going into those communities. You're starting to see that the majority of the gun violence is happening in very specific locations in the city, most times the most underserved parts of the city. And so if you really want to address gun violence, the hardest part in doing all of it is accurately talking about the solutions. That it's not that you don't fall back into the things that we've already seen don't work, like mass incarceration and just locking people up. It comes with making sure, that people have resources to heal, that we are healing our communities and in turn healing our citizens, which in turn creates less crime, which means that to have less crime, you need less poverty, which means we need to be doing things to restore people, to heal people, as opposed to punish them and then bring them back into society and think that we won't continue the cycle. And so, it just causes for, like, before we can talk about the solutions and specific policy and X, Y, and Z, we just have to get to a place where we can have an accurate conversation about what works and what doesn't work, where we are and how we got here. And once we do that, then those things seem they seem within reach, like something we can actually have impact on. Because I can come in as a leader and say, okay, yeah, I'm Malcolm Jenkins, famous guy. I can come to your neighborhood and say, y'all shouldn't be doing these things. And then I'm going to leave and go home. I'm not going to live in this neighborhood. Right? You have to live there. You got to deal with the people on your corner. You got to deal with the crime, the drugs, and all of these things. I don't. It's easy for me to say, don't do these things, don't behave that way when it behave like me. And it's like, you don't live in my environment.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we try to brush under the table when having a conversation about violence, because it's tough. It's violent. It's hard to, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants it in their city. But at the same time, we all have to be realistic about how we perpetuate that violence, or we play into a system that perpetuates that violence.
Right. Right. And I'm hoping at least some of the right people are listening and hearing you speak this, because it's exactly what is needed. And there's a cause and effect to make change, and multiple causes and effects. And I don't think folks look far back enough to solve some of those deep rooted, bigger issues that will eventually affect the change we want to see. But thank you so much for that, Malcolm. Last question before we jump over to the Q&A. We have a lot of individuals here in the audience, many who come from communities in which your work is focused, who are interested in making a positive impact on society. As they try to determine where and how they can better the world, what sort of advice do you have for these folks?
Yeah, I think I would say start with the need. Like I think one of the biggest mistakes and the best thing that best advice that I got in this entire space of giving back is meeting people where they are. Like, a lot of us will come up with ideas of what we think we can do, so like we were talking about this, Zach, like how many athletes have football camps, right? It's like just the default thing to do. It's like, I have a charity. Okay, I start a football camp. Right. In a community that's impoverished, that needs books and education and food and all these things. It's like, a football camp is great, but again, they're going to leave your camp and go back into these environments. And so when we talk about charity versus impact, right, there's a difference. And if the goal is impact, then that has to come with a plan. And first you're looking at, well, what's the need? And then what's the low hanging fruit? What can we do now that actually helps? And then what's something that we can put in place that is going to have lasting, like the deepest impact that we can have. And oftentimes, to have a deep impact, you have to have a very concentrated area that you serve. So once you figure out, identify what area, what city, what school, what child, whoever it is, whatever your scope is, who you want to influence, and find out what they need, and then start there. And if you don't have it, then find somebody else who is in the space who's doing it, and partner with them. And then you just continue to grow that until you have something that is bigger than you.
Right.
And that's usually a sign that you're doing it right.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And folks, I lied. One more question. Are the Eagles going to win the Super Bowl?
Yo, chill out, man. Chill out. Chill out. Chill out. Chill out. We don't need to be talking. See, this is the problem when you win a Super Bowl. All of a sudden, you start losing you start having amnesia, right? Before, nobody even want to talk about Super Bowl until we got like late in the year, December, January, things like that.
We would have talked about it if y'all was 7-0. I'd have been talking about it then.
I mean, we ended up being 13-3 almost. Yeah.
I'm saying we haven't been undefeated for this. We don't know how to act right now.
This is what I would say. Yes, y'all do. Y'all won a Super Bowl. Nobody cares about being undefeated. We don't care about that. That's not the goal, guys.
Better question. I'll rephrase it.
Do they have a chance? Yes.
Does the makeup of the current Philadelphia Eagles roster give you hope that they could go far in the playoffs?
Oh, they give me, if I look at what they have on the roster, they have a Super Bowl caliber team that can win a Super Bowl. They're healthy enough to win a Super Bowl. They're focused enough to win a Super Bowl. Now, will they? Is still to be determined, as they got a ton of games to go. But if it's ever looked like a Super Bowl team, they look like we did, especially at this past week when they got to celebrate and they're doing all the dances, they're having fun together. There's no distractions coming out of the locker room. These are all great signs. They're checking every box, but it is way too early to start talking about Super Bowl.
And just to let you know, me and all other Eagles fans heard, yeah, most likely they probably gonna win that, John.
Yeah, most likely.
That was our translation for what you just said.
For sure. But I just want to keep the rhetoric the right way until we get there. Yeah.
And I know you have an affinity for two teams. I used to work with Marcus Colston. I'm a big Saints fan. But seeing as how we have your number one pick, I wish nothing but losses to your squad the rest of this year. And I apologize for that, but I do mean it. We're going to jump into some Q&A from our audience. Again, thanks everyone for watching. And of course, we're not going to be able to get to every question. We'll get to as many as we can before we run out of time here today. But I want to thank you for submitting questions because we have some really great ones. I'm going to start with this first one from Robbie Long. He wrote, "It seems like social justice has become a buzzword that companies are using to gain awareness. However, it's difficult to tell if they are actually committed to change. What are some methods we can use to determine authenticity?"
So I think that we have to stop putting the hands of our social movements in private companies, for one. Because yes, they are doing that. And rightfully so. They study numbers and trends. And so when we start to, as consumers, behave in a place where we're looking at there was a time where if a company didn't make a statement about Black Lives Matter or something, if they didn't come out and support, then we would, put them on blast for not supporting. So the response to that was, you got companies that just push stuff out because it gets good numbers and looks good. To me, what I always start with is, if you really want to have an impact, show me what you're doing in your house. So if your company, if I look at the top decision makers and none of them are women or Black or minority, then the ads that you're running don't really mean anything to me. It's not mean that I need to cancel you or anything, but I'm not going to champion you as the solution to this cause, unless you're actually doing these things kind of in-house. And I treat the NFL the same exact way, which is why I think it's important for players to do things outside of the NFL, because they're a private business. They're always going to do the things that have the best impact on their business first. And then if they can have some social impact while they do that and protect their interests, then they will. And so it's just up to us to make sure we stay focused on the things that really, really matter, which is like, what are their practices in-house? And then also what we can do that is tied into reputable organizations that do that work every day, and donate to them. Because essentially that's what these other corporations end up doing. They just donate to the people who really do the work.
For sure, for sure. We have another good question here. This is from Natasha Graves. Because you have such a public platform, do you ever feel like you have to censor your social impact work because of potential backlash? And sort of on the flip side of that, do you feel like there is pressure in being in the public eye to be involved in certain social impact or social justice causes?
Like, part of me wants to say no, but I think I'd be lying if I said there was no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a significant pressure to me. To me, it's just a simple decision. If I lay on the table the things that I'm passionate about and the commentary that I'll get for doing work and helping have an impact, is not even comparable. So it's not really something that I think a lot about. There was a time where it was harder to do some of these things than it is now. I feel like right now you're almost celebrated for doing social justice work, and that has not always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, similar to the last question, I find myself quieter now than I was before, because there are so many voices in the space. The space is flooded with everybody now, saying things, and most of the time, it's not coming from a place that's genuine or founded in research or experience, and that can be frustrating. So,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've just continued to focus on, the things that I can have impact on, the things I have control over, the people who I can touch immediately, and just try to keep it there.
Gotcha. Here's another question. This was an anonymous submittal, but what are some of the key things you look for when you think of getting involved in a startup project or a community-focused project?
Leadership. It's really not even about the idea. Is most times, like, we've seen a ton of great business ideas fail because the leadership team was not good, or basic ideas. We've all seen very basic level things and think, I could have thought of that. Like, how did that become a $1 million company, $1 billion company? Just the team, the leadership. And so when we talk about startups, that's the riskiest, thing you can invest in when it comes to venture capital space. So in order to do that, you got to really believe in the product, but really believe in the leadership of the team, that they can take this product and build a company. And so and that's what the investment is needed for, to scale up. And so you're really looking at, can they handle that scale up, to where they have more employees, more people that they're servicing, more responsibilities, bigger expenses, X, Y, and Z. Those are all things that you got to consider when evaluating startup companies and fresh new organizations.
Gotcha. So I guess this is going to be geared more towards some of our younger folk, because I'm sure we have a lot of students on here. What do you look for when you might be recruiting talented people, specifically young people? Let's say they don't have that leadership skill set quite yet. What are some things that you might want to identify or see in some of the younger folks that you may want to work with?
Yeah, I think what I see in younger folks now are, they're more skilled with less experience and hungrier. And so to me, I love people who, here's my whole strategy, at least, is I try to, when I can, I'm looking for partners as opposed to, employees, when it comes to, like, really building something out. And there's a lot of young people that have some phenomenal talent and just don't have a long resume. But because education is the way it is now, and access to specific skills is what it is now, you don't necessarily need to go to all of these institutions and have all of the validations to have the skill set. People are teaching themselves how to do things on YouTube, going to classes to get very specific licensing, things like that, and being very valuable immediately out of college, because you have the skill to push something out. And because businesses and organizations are moving, towards, moving not even towards, but all on social media platforms that are constantly changing, there's a need for a youthful eye and look on how to engage with the new technologies, how to engage with this new generation that is having, that has a different moral code than 2 generations before, that has a different way of seeing things. There's a need for that in order for companies to be able to meet this new generation and move into the future. And so I do see, so those are the things that I'm looking for. Are you young with that mentality? Like, do you have a vision, a drive, a skill? And all you need is, a little bit of experience and some infrastructure. Like, those are the people that I'm looking for, because those are the ones that'll take you into the next spot. And I'm not just trying to hire them and give them, sign them for as low amount of, as I can. I want to take them and make them a partner. Like, I want to give you equity in what we're doing so that you're here. You'll build it like it's your own.
Right.
That's really just been my strategy.
That's so important. I even take that mindset towards growing my own consulting firm. I don't do interns anymore. I do apprentices. And my goal is, I will be paying you. I do want you to learn, but like, my mindset is that everything I'm doing, you can do, and we can grow together, and you become a part of this company. And it's so important to find those right people that really have that vision and passion and drive. Another question we have here is, can you discuss the importance of community buy-in when it comes to like social impact programs that you're looking to do?
It's 100%, and that's why it's like we made the mistake before of trying to bring something to a community that they did not need, and so right, and so when you don't have community buy-in, you just show up with book bags, and they needed food. It's like, you feel better and you checked your box because you did some social impact, but if we were to really sit back and evaluate what that impact was, and did it help that specific community, that's a whole different answer. And so what we have to always, on this side of kind of this equation, evaluate is our own inner motives. Like, am I doing this because I want to give back because I feel good when I give back? And so therefore I'll give back in any way that's easy, or is the priority impact? Because if the priority is impact, then there has to be a plan to actually have that impact. And that is a lot more intentional, and that requires you to engage with that specific community who you're trying to serve, understanding who they are, what they need, what things they might need protection from. And that to me is a big place. We talk about allyship. We think a lot about like investments and donations and things like that. And we really don't talk about how much protection a lot of these communities need and things like that. We need the preventative energy. Like, don't come after our communities have been just ravished and everything's gone. And so therefore you just have to supplement small pieces of sustenance to keep us alive.
Right.
It's like, no, protect us from the things that destroy the community. While we try to build ourselves up, it's nothing like getting kicked while you're down. So it's like, hey, okay, if the goal is you tell me, pull myself up by the bootstraps, then please protect me while I occupy my hands.
Right.
And I think that's really where this next like phase has to go, is that you've got to have people who can push to get gains. You have to have people who will protect those gains, and people who bring up the rear. Like, it has to be that way.
100%. And identifying the need is key. I definitely wouldn't want to show up with book bags when they wanted food. That could be tough. Me and some alumni from the Fox School created a program where we go into a couple local high schools here and talk to the kids. And my mindset was, we'll tell them about our careers and this, that, and the other. And shout out to Neha Arnold, one of the Fox alums. She was like, well, we should actually go in there and talk to a couple students and figure out what they want. And we did that, and we find out they want to learn about how do I de-escalate confrontations. And I'm like, I wasn't going to come with that information, but now we can prepare. We're going to bring to you some great programming, and it's been great ever since. So important. to do. We have just a couple questions left. One thing I want to ask, kind of looking into the future, what do you think will be that biggest challenge for social justice community-based efforts over the next 10 to 15 years? And you were kind of starting to head into that direction, but yeah, what do you think those biggest challenges are going to be?
Fatigue. I think right now what I've seen is even I've experienced it myself, where you chase, this idea for impact, and you look up and there's just constant need. There's just, you feel like you've done nothing, or you feel like, oh, I've got to change people. Like, I have to get people to get it first before we can change it. There has to be a change of mindset before we can change it. And I think that's like been the most frustrating thing. I think as I look like to the future, but at the same time, I know that it's the necessary thing, is that there needs to be an education, that happens. Like, there needs to be a change in mindset. And when we can change people's minds, then we can change their behaviors. And then once we change behaviors, like, the sky's the limit kind of thing. But yeah, but you find yourself, okay, with that being the goal, now we're at a place in the country where getting accurate information seems hard. Understanding there's a fight over the truth about history. And so all of the things that have the context and gems that we need to even understand our current position are threatened right now. So when it comes to politics, I think the fatigue of running that cycle gets people to participate less, gets people desensitized, it gets you to think, well, what's so different about this moment? And there's so many distractions. So I think, like, even in this next election that I hope everybody's participating in, I'm looking like, at this point, I don't really, what's happening on the presidential level is like, really doesn't matter to me as much. I'm really looking at, like, because I've had the most impact on the state and local level. And those are the elections that we have that we don't pay attention to. Like, the amount of times we'll complain about the police and things like this, but we don't vote for those people who control their budget. Or we want to talk about mass incarceration, but we don't vote for the district attorney. Or we, have these issues and we don't focus on the people around us who literally make the decisions for our day-to-day lives. I think those, like, being able to keep people focused on that over the long run will create the results that we want. But if we continue to focus kind of on all these distractions, these debates about things that won't even affect, how we live our lives, the discord, inability to meet people where they are through their experiences and have constructive dialogue, those things create fatigue that make the people who do the work quit the work, and the people who are not in the work not understand the urgency. Right. And that is a place where, people get taken advantage of. And so to me, that's probably my biggest concern, because I haven't found a social justice warrior out there that doesn't have baggy eyes.
Right. True. Thank you so much for that answer. And last question, just because we got this from a few folks. If someone wanted to get involved with the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation, what is the best way to go about doing that?
Yeah, the best way to do it is go to our website, just like the Ohio State, is themalcolmjenkinsfoundation.org. We have all of our events if you want to sign up and volunteer. If you want to donate, if you want to just reach out and figure out how you can, be involved or hear more about our programs, you can email us at info@themalcolmjenkinsfoundation.org. That will go directly to my mother, Gwendolyn. So you'll be tied into what we're doing, what we're planning, and how you can help.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we put in the link. I think we found a volunteer link on your site. So we'll make sure to throw that in the chat for anyone that wants to volunteer. Malcolm, this has been fantastic to get to chat with you, to reconnect with you, my brother.
Yes.
And to hear about all these ventures. Yeah, it's been a whole pandemic.
Right.
But to hear all these great things that you're doing and that you're pushing forward, and all the people you're impacting, not just from folks who benefit from some of your events and foundation, but those who are building careers and growing in these different fields through their connection with you. It just is awesome, and we need more people like you to build that tree and really help others rise. So again, folks, thank you for listening. We want to bring in the director of Temple University Entrepreneurship Academy, Alan Kersner, is going to come in and say a few words. Alan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Malcolm, for an outstanding program. And thank you, Zach, for helping direct Malcolm to share all his knowledge and insights for us.
Sure.
A lot of very tactical suggestions to help all of us get more involved and be more effective. As Zach mentioned, I head up the Temple University Entrepreneurship Academy, which is part of IEI. And we do focus on enhancing entrepreneurial thinking and doing across the entire university. This program, the social impact program we run, as well as a freelancing workshop and mini accelerator, which we'll be doing in the spring. And also academically, we have the Bachelor of Fine Arts with Entrepreneurial Studies at Tyler, and are also working with several other colleges. This whole effort is truly a cross-university effort. And I'd like to thank several organizations who have been involved. We'll get the slides up as I speak about them. So Net Impact, which is a great organization for any students who are interested in really being effective and impactful players. And Net Impact is a nationwide organization, and we are very lucky to have our own very active chapter right here in Temple. Other partner organizations are the Institute for Law, Innovation, and Technology out of our Beasley School of Law, Blackstone Launchpad, obviously the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation, Zach's Rebel Hill Consulting, the Fox Business School. And I also want to say that programs like today are the result of the efforts of a cross-university committee featuring faculty and institute heads from the College of Education, Liberal Arts, Department of Sustainability, etc. So again, I'd like to thank everyone. I would like to thank those of you who have attended. Here is a link to a quick survey. We practice what we preach in terms of IEI. We listen to our customers. You are our customers, so please scan this QR code and provide us some thoughts. And